The Amish have never purchased a bag of synthetic fertilizer, not once in over 200 years of farming the same land. Their fields produce yields that rival chemically treated farms on either side of their property line. Their soil gets richer every single year instead of poorer, and the entire system costs them nothing but time and organic matter they were already throwing away. The global synthetic fertilizer industry generates over $200 billion in annual revenue. A farming method that produces equal yields without spending a dollar on fertilizer is not something that industry once taught in any agricultural college funded by corporate grants. They did not make modern farmers dependent on synthetic fertilizer because it was the best solution for the soil. They made them dependent because it was the most profitable solution for the companies selling it. This is the story of the Amish soil system that has grown abundant harvest from the same fields for 2 centuries without buying a single product, and how a $200 billion industry made sure the rest of the world forgot it was ever possible. Welcome to Forbidden Camping. This is where we crack open the vaults the industry sealed shut. Now let me take you back to where this all started. The year is 1730. The first Amish settlers break ground in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. They arrive from the Rhine Valley and the Swiss cantons carrying something no corporate agriculture company can patent or sell. They carry soil knowledge. Specifically, they carry a complete understanding of how living soil works, how it feeds itself, and how a farmer's job is not to feed the soil with purchased inputs, but to manage the biological processes already happening inside it. These settlers came from farming communities that had worked the same European fields for multiple generations without depleting them. They understood something that took modern soil science until the 1990s to confirm in a laboratory. Healthy soil is not a growing medium. It is a living ecosystem. And living ecosystems, managed correctly, feed themselves indefinitely at zero cost to the farmer. Let me take you further back than 1730. Long before the first Amish family arrived in Pennsylvania, civilizations had been building soil fertility using biological waste for thousands of years. Chinese farmers documented systematic composting practices as early as 2000 BC, according to records reviewed in the journal Agriculture, Ecosystems, and Environment. Roman agricultural writers, including Columella, dedicated entire chapters of their farming manuals to composting animal and vegetable waste back into field soil. George Washington composted systematically at Mount Vernon, maintaining dedicated bins he considered among his most valuable agricultural assets. The Amish inherited this deep tradition of biological soil management and carried it forward without interruption into the 20th century, while the rest of American agriculture was being convinced to abandon it in favor of products manufactured in industrial chemical plants. The Amish composting system is built on 4 pillars that work together as a single integrated cycle. Animal manure from their livestock is collected daily and combined with straw bedding from the barn floor. Kitchen scraps, including vegetable peelings, eggshells, and coffee grounds, are mixed into dedicated compost piles. Cover crops, including clover, rye, and buckwheat, are grown specifically to be turned back into the soil at the peak of their nitrogen content. And wood ash from their heating stoves is spread directly across garden beds each spring as a source of potassium and calcium. These 4 inputs cost the Amish community nothing because they are all byproducts of activities already happening on the farm every single day. The animal is already there. The straw is already there. The kitchen scraps are already there. The wood fire is already burning. The composting system simply redirects existing waste streams back into the soil where they belong. Now let me show you exactly why this works at the scientific level. Soil fertility is not about adding chemicals. It is about feeding a biological community. Healthy agricultural soil contains between 100 million and 1 billion individual microorganisms per teaspoon, according to USDA Agricultural Research Service measurements published in 2019. These organisms, including bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and nematodes, break down organic matter into plant-available mineral forms and fix atmospheric nitrogen directly into the soil. Synthetic fertilizer bypasses this entire biological system by dumping concentrated mineral salts directly into the soil solution. Plants absorb them quickly, but the salt concentration simultaneously damages or kills the microbial community. Every bag of synthetic nitrogen applied to a field makes the next bag more necessary because it progressively destroys the biological infrastructure that would otherwise supply nutrients for free. The Amish fields are not just growing crops. They are protecting the living system that grows crops without any purchased input at all. The Amish use of cover crops is where their system produces results that shock conventional agronomists. A winter cover crop of hairy vetch planted after autumn harvest and turned into the soil the following spring can fix between 60 and 200 pounds of atmospheric nitrogen per acre at zero cost, according to Rodale Institute data spanning over 30 years of continuous field measurement. That represents the equivalent of $60 to $200 worth of synthetic nitrogen fertilizer replaced by a plant that grows over winter on its own. Red clover interseeded between corn rows provides continuous biological nitrogen fixation throughout the growing season. Buckwheat grown as a summer cover crop releases organic acids from its root system that dissolve phosphorus locked in the soil mineral matrix and make it available to subsequent crops. The Amish have been using these plants as biological fertilizer factories for 2 centuries. The seed costs almost nothing. The results in peer-reviewed field trials match or exceed synthetic fertilizer application rates. Before I go deeper, everything I'm about to reveal goes beyond what one video can cover. I compiled the complete Amish soil and fertility system into one resource, the complete Forbidden Camping Vault. Inside you will find the step-by-step compost pile construction guide with exact layering ratios and turning schedules, the cover crop selection chart showing which plants fix the most nitrogen for your specific climate zone, the compost tea brewing protocol that delivers concentrated biological fertility to plant roots at pennies per gallon, the wood ash application guide with precise rates for different soil types, the Amish crop rotation calendar used continuously in Lancaster County for over 150 years, the soil test interpretation guide that tells you exactly what your ground needs, and the complete weed suppression system the Amish use instead of herbicides that costs nothing. Over 10 detailed guides in one vault. No filler. Straight to the knowledge. Link in the description. But stay here because the industry side of this story is genuinely dark. Now here is where the story takes a very dark turn. In 1909, 2 German chemists named Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch developed a process that manufactured nitrogen fertilizer from atmospheric air using high heat and high pressure. By the 1950s, synthetic fertilizer was flooding the American agricultural market at prices that undercut any competing soil management approach. The chemical companies that manufactured it funded agricultural research programs at land-grant universities. They sponsored extension services that advised farmers directly. They shaped the curriculum of agricultural colleges for 2 generations, and through those channels they systematically promoted a single message: biological farming is primitive and inefficient. Chemistry is modern and scientific. Any farmer who still composts manure instead of buying nitrogen is simply behind the times. The message was enormously effective. Between 1945 and 1980, synthetic fertilizer use in American agriculture increased by over 700% according to USDA historical input use data. The fertilizer industry did not just use education to achieve dominance. It restructured the entire economics of American farming in ways that made traditional soil management financially irrational, even for farmers who understood its biological superiority. Farm equipment manufacturers introduced larger tillage equipment scaled to chemically manage monoculture systems. Banks wrote farm loan agreements that assumed synthetic input purchases as standard line items. Crop insurance programs were structured around yield expectations that assumed chemical fertility management. Step by step across 2 decades, the financial infrastructure of American agriculture was rebuilt around purchased synthetic inputs. A farmer who wanted to manage soil biologically faced equipment sized for chemical systems, loan terms written for chemical systems, and insurance products designed for chemical systems. The Amish watched this transformation from behind their fence lines and kept composting. The Amish never stopped. Penn State University researchers surveying Lancaster County farms found that Amish fields maintain soil organic matter levels averaging 4 to 6%, compared to a regional average of 1.5 to 2.5% on conventionally managed farms in the same county. Soil organic matter is the single most important indicator of long-term biological fertility. Every percentage point represents approximately 1,000 pounds of available nitrogen per acre stored in stable biological form. The Amish fields are not just producing crops, they are building a biological bank account in the soil that grows more valuable every season at zero financial cost. Meanwhile, the average conventionally managed American farm field loses measurable organic matter every year under synthetic management, according to USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service monitoring data. The Amish farm gets richer. The chemical farm gets poorer. One of them is paying $200 billion per year for the privilege of degrading its own land. The scientific community has been validating the Amish soil system for decades. The Rodale Institute Farming Systems trial, running continuously since 1981, is the longest side-by-side comparison of organic and conventional farming in North America. After 30 years of data, the trial confirmed that organically managed fields match conventional yields after a transition period while delivering measurably improving soil health metrics every year. A 2021 meta-analysis published in Nature Plants examining 5,000 individual field studies across 52 countries found that organic methods including composting and cover cropping produced average yields within 19% of conventional systems while delivering documented benefits in soil biology and long-term fertility that synthetic management consistently degrades. The science has confirmed what the Amish demonstrated empirically across 200 consecutive growing seasons. You do not need to buy fertility, you need to manage biology. Now here is exactly what you can do starting this week. Begin with a basic compost pile because it costs nothing and starts working immediately. Choose a spot in your yard at least 3 feet from any structure. Build your pile in alternating layers of brown carbon-rich materials and green nitrogen-rich materials. Brown materials include dry leaves, straw, cardboard torn into small pieces, and wood chips. Green materials include fresh grass clippings, vegetable kitchen scraps, coffee grounds, and fresh plant trimmings. The ideal ratio is roughly 3 parts brown to 1 part green by volume. Each layer should be no more than 4 inches thick. Moisten each layer as you build so the pile feels like a wrung-out sponge. Turn the entire pile once per week using a garden fork to introduce oxygen. Within 4 to 8 weeks, you will have finished compost that improves soil biology, water retention, and nutrient availability in every bed it touches. Total material cost is zero. For faster results, the compost tea method delivers biological fertility directly to plant roots at remarkable speed. Fill a 5-gallon bucket 3/4 full with clean water and let it sit uncovered for 24 hours to allow chlorine to off-gas. Add 2 cups of finished compost to an old pillowcase and submerge it in the water. Drop a small aquarium air pump into the bucket and run it continuously for 24 to 48 hours. The aeration keeps the water oxygenated, which allows beneficial bacteria from the compost to multiply dramatically in the liquid. After 48 hours, you have a biologically active liquid containing hundreds of millions of beneficial soil organisms per milliliter. Apply it immediately by watering directly around plant bases or spraying it onto soil before planting. The microorganisms establish in the soil and begin biological nitrogen fixation within days. A 5-gallon aquarium air pump costs $4 at any pet store and treats a large garden for an entire growing season. Wood ash from any wood-burning stove is a direct replacement for purchased lime and potassium fertilizer that Amish families have used for 2 centuries. Fresh wood ash contains between 25 and 45% calcium carbonate equivalent, which raises soil pH exactly as agricultural lime does, but at zero cost. It also contains 3 to 7% potassium oxide, a primary plant macronutrient sold commercially as the K in NPK fertilizer. A 2017 study in the journal Bioresource Technology confirmed that wood ash application at standard rates produced statistically significant improvements in soil pH, available potassium, and crop yield in acidic soils. Apply wood ash to your garden beds in early spring at roughly 1 pound per 10 square feet. Work it lightly into the top 2 inches of soil. Do not apply to beds where you plan to grow acid-loving plants like blueberries. Used correctly, it replaces products that cost $20 to $40 per bag at any garden center for $0 from your own fireplace. The Amish never bought fertility because they understood something a $200 billion industry spent decades making farmers forget. Soil is alive, and living systems managed with knowledge regenerate themselves without outside input indefinitely. A Lancaster County Amish farm today produces abundant harvests from the same land their great-great-grandparents first broke in 1730. The soil is measurably richer now than it was then, not depleted, richer. Because every year for nearly 300 years, the biological cycle has been maintained. Compost returns to soil. Cover crops fix nitrogen from air. Wood ash replaces minerals removed by harvest, and the living community of organisms in the earth does the rest without a purchase order or a delivery truck. The bag of synthetic fertilizer at the garden center is not solving a soil problem. It is creating dependence on a product that makes the same problem worse next season. Your kitchen scraps are already there. Your fallen leaves are already there. The air above your garden contains more nitrogen than you will ever need. The Amish simply never forgot how to use them. Subscribe and share this. The next vault opens soon. The beeswax creates a completely airtight oxygen barrier around the food. Without oxygen, there is no oxidative spoilage and no aerobic bacterial growth. Amish communities in Holmes County, Ohio, use this exact method to store farmhouse cheddar for 6 to 9 months without any refrigeration. The technique is documented in European cheesemaking literature from 17th century Bavaria and carried to Pennsylvania by the first Amish settlers. One $5 block of beeswax seals dozens of portions. Compare that against a chest freezer at $400 drawing electricity for years. If you have any outdoor space, you can build a functional root cellar for under $50 in a single afternoon. Dig a hole approximately 4 feet deep and 3 feet wide. Line the walls with untreated wood boards or stacked flat stones to prevent collapse. Leave the floor as bare earth to allow natural moisture regulation. Build a tight-fitting wooden lid and cover it with a thick layer of straw bales or packed soil for insulation. Inside the structure, the temperature will stabilize between 35 and 45 degrees Fahrenheit year-round across most of North America with zero mechanical assistance. Root vegetables stored in slightly dampened clean sand will remain firm and nutritious for 4 to 6 months, as confirmed by Penn State Extension research. A $50 hole eliminates the need for a chest freezer at $400 to purchase and $50 to $80 per year in electricity. Over 10 years, that single appliance costs $1,200 in electricity alone. The hole costs $50 once. The Amish did not preserve this knowledge because they had no alternatives. They made deliberate and reasoned decisions about which technologies serve community resilience and which create dependence. A Lancaster County Amish family today spends roughly $80 per year on their entire food preservation operation. The average American family spends over $1,400 per year on refrigeration, electricity, frozen food, and food waste combined. That gap is not a technology gap. It is a knowledge gap created by the deliberate removal of information that threatened a revenue model. The salt is still on your shelf. The cabbage is still $1 at any market. The earth beneath your backyard still holds 38 degrees 6 feet down, as it has every year of human history. Physics did not change when the refrigerator arrived. The story did. And now you know what they spent a century making sure you would never hear. Subscribe and share this. The next vault opens soon.